Okay, this is our third lesson in chapter 0, and this one's about comparing and ordering fractions. And we're going to get started with some notes. So first, to compare fractions, you must first find the least common denominator. We're going to call that the LCD. Some people will also say least common multiple. So if you hear me say least common multiple when I'm doing some of the examples in a minute, that's why. So least common denominator is also the least common multiple. Second, after we find the LCD, we compare the fractions by looking at their numerators. All right, so let's see two examples. First method I'm going to show you to find the LCD is called the listing method. And in the listing method, we take our two denominators and we list their multiples so we can find the smallest multiple that they have in common. And how to find multiples is very easy. So we're going to do 9 first. We do 9 times 1, 9 times 2, 9 times 3, 9 times 4, and you just kind of keep going until you have a good place to stop. If we need to keep going and list more multiples, we will. Next, we'll do 12. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36, and I can stop there because I can see that I have a multiple in common in both lists. So that's going to be my least common multiple, or in this case, my least common denominator. Okay? And if I want to take these two fractions and turn them into common fractions with that common denominator, I can use my listing method to help me with that. So 5/9, I need to take my 9 and multiply by 1, 2, 3, 4 to get 36. And if I multiply the denominator by 4, I have to multiply the numerator by 4 as well to keep them equivalent fractions. So I get 20/36. I can do the same thing with my second fraction, 8/12. To get 12 to be equal to 36, I can multiply by 1, 2, 3. And remember to multiply the numerator by the same thing in order to get the equivalent fractions. So 8 times 3 is 24, and 12 times 3 is 36. So if I'm going to try to compare these two fractions, let me put my 20 down here. Remember, my order matched up. Let me get rid of this arrow here. My order is the same. 5/9 is equal to 20/36. 8/12 is equal to 24/36. Now that my denominators are the same, I can look at their numerators. 20 is smaller than 24, so I'm going to put the less than sign there, and that would help me compare those two fractions. That wasn't asked of us in this example, but I figured we went so far, why not just finish it up? Okay, that's what this whole lesson's about. Okay, the second method is called the Venn diagram method. Some students love this, some aren't as big of a fan, so you can choose which method you like better and stick with it. Maybe you have a different method that works as well. That's fine too, as long as you can find me a multiple, that least common multiple to find the LCD, we're good to go. So the Venn diagram method, I'm a big fan of this one. The denominators are a little bit larger, 25 and 40. So what we do first is we start off by finding the prime factorization of the 25 and the prime factorization of 40. Okay, so that means we break it down into a product of the prime numbers that it takes to multiply together to get that number. So 25 can be written as a multiplication problem, 5 times 5. And whenever we do our factor trees, if we end up with a prime number, we circle it and we stop there. So both my 5s are prime, so I'm going to circle them. I don't have to keep going with my factor tree. I can stop right there. And I'm going to write my prime factorization as 5 times 5. You could also write this as 5 squared, but for our purposes, it's better to write it as a list of numbers in order. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for 40. 40 is going to be a little bit of a bigger factor tree for us. And maybe you want to start with 2 times 20. 2 is prime, so I'll circle it. 20 can be written as 2 times 10. 2 is prime, so I'll circle it. And 10 can be written as 2 times 5. 2 and 5 are both prime, so we're going to circle them. So to write our prime factorization, we're going to put these numbers in the circles in order from least to greatest. Okay, so that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. And we're going to leave it in list form because that's going to help us when we fill in our Venn diagram. Okay, so the left-hand circle is going to be for my 25 factors, and the right-hand circle is going to be for my 40 factors. And the middle is going to be for whatever shows up in both of those lists. So I'll use maybe a turquoisey color for that. Okay, so take a look at both my lists here. I have 5 times 5, and I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. What shows up in both of those lists is a 5. Okay, so 1 5 here, 1 5 there. I'm going to put that 5 in the middle. And now I can go back to my 25 side, and the only factor left is this 5. And on my 40 side, though there are several factors left, it's 2 times 2 times 2. So I'm going to put 3 2's there. So if you remember the Venn diagram method from years past, the section in the middle would help me find my greatest common factor, the GCF, which I don't need right now. What I need is the LCD, the least common denominator. And to do that, I can take all the numbers in the diagram and multiply them together. So 5 times 5 is 25, times 2 is 50, times 2 is 100, times 2 is 200. So my LCD is 200. And I can turn both of these denominators into 200s by multiplying 25 by 8, and then multiplying 12 by 8, and then multiplying 40 by 5 and 17 by 5. It's not asked of us here, but we could get the job done if we wanted to. The question asks, what's the LCD? And here's my answer, 200. Last but not least, we have these two mixed numbers to compare. Well, the first thing I want you to take notice is that they have the same whole number, 6 and 6. So if they're the same, now we have to look at the fraction pieces to compare them. So I don't really need those 6's at this point. I need the fractions. So you have your choices of if you want to do the listing method or the Venn diagram method. I think I'll do the listing method here. So 16 can be 16 times 1 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 3 is 48, and times 4 is 64. I'm going to stop there. 24, if I want to do those multiples, 24 times 1 is 1. 24 times 2 is 48. And I can stop there. Because I have a multiple in common, my 48ths. All right? So if I want to turn 16 into a 48, let's move this, give us a little more space. 16 times 1, 2, 3 is 48. Remember, if you multiply the denominator by 3, you have to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So I get 6 and 45 48ths. And 24, I can multiply that by 1, 2 to get 48. And I get 6 and 44 48ths. And now I can compare my two mixed numbers. 44 is larger than 45, so that's a greater than sign that I'm going to put there. Okay, so at this time, go ahead and do those practice problems. Check your answers in Schoology. That is very, very important. Write down any questions you want to ask in class tomorrow. Have a great day.